Right, today I want to show you this really cool little trick for making your 2x2 ribbing that little bit tighter and neater. I don't know if you've ever seen before in your own knitting how that transition between a knit and a purl stitch can leave this really long, like gaping bit of yarn between the two stitches. It doesn't seem to happen so much with the other ones, they quite naturally tighten up. But this trick's just going to show you how to hug those two stitches together. I'll just demonstrate how I think it's working. So if we knit those two stitches to start with, we pull the yarn forward to go in as if to purl that first purl stitch, and we're having to wrap the yarn a really long way. It feels quite an inefficient way of getting around the needle, which I think's what's creating that extra bit that's trailing between the two. Again, we've pulled the yarn around the front, we're wrapping it anti-clockwise, and it seems like that's using that tiny bit extra working yarn to create the stitch, which is then hanging loose and leaving a big hole. It's not quite so obvious on this merino wool that I'm using, but on a less stickier yarn like a cotton or a linen, it's really quite obvious and can ruin your knitting a bit. But I'll just show you a sample of a piece that's been knit using this trick. You see how it's all a little bit tighter and firmer. That's that column between the knit and the purl stitch just sort of stands quite proud. So we'll just show you how it works. Effectively what we're going to do is twist that first purl stitch, twist it on one row and untwist it coming back the other way, and it just helps to hug those stitches together. I'll just show you how that works. We'll knit the first two knit stitches as normal, and then when we go to work this first purl stitch in the column, rather than wrapping the yarn clockwise as we normally would, we're going to wrap it, anti-clockwise. Instead, we're going to wrap it clockwise and pull it through. That's effectively twisting the stitch. This next purl stitch you can just purl as normal. So then we knit the next two. As I've been working this trick the whole way up this sample, you'll see that this second knit stitch is actually twisted, which was the purl stitch that I twisted on the previous row. If we were working in the round, of course, you'd be twisting and untwisting the same purl stitch each time, but as we're knitting flat, that twisted purl stitch is now a knit stitch. You'll see the back leg of the stitch is further forward than the front, which is how it would normally appear. So it's quite obvious that that's the stitch we now need to knit. And we're going to do it by knitting through the back loop to untwist it. And then as this is the first purl stitch in the column, we're going to make sure we always wrap this particular stitch clockwise. And this next purl stitch just as normal. Knit stitch, and here we go, another twisted knit stitch, so we're going to knit that one through the back loop. And the first purl stitch in the column, we're going to wrap this one clockwise. Knit that one, and there another twisted one, so we'll knit that through the back loop. It's going to be really obvious when you get to these. You'll never hopefully forget to do it, because it's going to feel a bit unnatural to knit it as normal. And knit that last one, purl that last one as normal. So there we go. Hope that helps.